The following is a production of Frank DeFreitas and the Internet Museum of Holography.
Hello, this is Frank DeFreitas, and welcome to HoloTalk, the Internet's laser and holography talk show. Our toll-free number is 1-800-458-3525, or you can send an email to holotalk@holoworld.com. We've got telephone calls, we've got emails, we've got special guests coming up, so thank you for tuning in, and let's get this week's show on the road.
Okay, hello, welcome to another broadcast of HoloTalk. We've got a guest with us again this week. Debbie stopped back. How you doing, Deb?
Good. How are you, Frank?
All right. Did you have such a good time last week that you figured you just had to come back for another show, I guess, right?
That's right.
Okay. We've got a lot of telephone questions and also email questions. I want to thank you for sending them in. We are going to try and get to all of them. Let's see if we have any announcements that we need to make. Next Friday night, which is going to be the 21st, we're going to broadcast the show live on the Internet. Now, there's not going to be any audio with this. What you'll do is log on. You'll see a web page that you can go to. You can go on, and then you'll see we're going to get a webcam and upload the pictures with the webcam. What do you think about that? That's pretty cool, isn't it?
That's pretty cool. I'll make sure I look good.
Okay, yeah, stop in and see the vivacious Debbie Lee next Friday night on the 21st. We've got to change things around here quite a bit because I don't think the camera would pick you up where you're at right now, so we've got to move the equipment around so that we can get both of us in at the same time. I'm sure people don't need to see me, but they can see what we go through to have to get this show together. Okay, we're booked with guests now until March of 1998. I'm going to get a page up so that you can log on and see exactly who those guests are, but I can go down the list quickly. Once again, we're doing guests every 2 weeks. The middle shows, we're going to do a question and answer, and we're just going to leave the middle shows sort of like open format, so if we come up with any ideas for things to do, we can pop them in those middle shows. Coming up next week, November 23rd, is going to be Paul Graham with the company Light Vision. And this is a cool company because they put holographic images on candy, and specifically from what I've seen from their website, lollipops, which are pretty neat.
I'm really interested in how they do it.
Okay.
I'm sure you eat the holograms, right?
You eat the holograms, yes. And
so it's not on film or anything?
No,
like
it's not on film. It's actually put the interference pattern that creates the three-dimensional image is actually put right into the candy. It's the structure of the candy. And you hold the candy in the light and you get the 3D image. Pretty cool. December 7th, we're going to have Wang Chun, who is involved with the Holographic Development Corporation in China, Shenzhen, China, and he's going to fill us in on what's happening with holography in China. December 21st, Derek Gallen, he's from the Royal Holographic Gallery in Canada. He's going to be filling us in on what's hot with holography through his shop that he has there, and also his website. January 4th, Alex Schemetz. And this is going to be an interesting show for people who are involved with holography because his company, 3D Company, distributes the holographic film from Russia, which we are very interested in after the AGFA situation where they're stopping production of holographic film and plates at AGFA. January 18th, we have a special guest. We can't say who it is right now, but they're involved with Photonics West 98 with SPIE, and we're still in negotiations to get that guest on. And this is actually going through an organization, so I guess that takes them a little bit more time to get back and things, but they said, yes, there's going to be a guest. We just have to wait until the paperwork and the emails and things get to the right people and contacts and all that other kind of stuff you have to go through with corporations. February 1st, Brian Monahan from Pennsylvania Pulp and Paper. This is a company that has grown by leaps and bounds. They do the desktop holograms, and basically what they do is they have a setup there with a few desktop computers, and they work in image software, and then they send that image over to a holographic printer, which produces the master plate that then goes on to the press and produces mass-produced holograms. February 15th, Jimmy Wolford, and he's with a company that does security holograms in Panama. And we're going to be talking with him on how holography can be used as a security measure. And I get a lot of emails with questions about using holograms in security purposes, so that's a show you're going to want to tune into. Let's do a phone question and an email question, and we'll just go back and forth with this format tonight. How's that?
Sounds good.
Okay, let's start with a phone question. So this was our first question that came in through the telephone line this week.
Holograms have shown, I guess, to do a good job as a security measure on credit cards, and I was wondering if, in the future, holograms can be used on U.S. currency.
Okay, security holograms and their use on U.S. currency. I know that holograms are becoming more and more popular as security measures. It's a booming part of the field of holography. Used on not only the credit cards. I think the credit cards is probably where most people see holograms used as a security device, even though most people don't realize that that's why the hologram's on there from the times that I've spoken to them and asked them, do you know why the hologram's on the credit card? But they're also used as security devices on clothing and other articles as well. I think there's been negotiations and talks about using holograms on U.S. currency for quite a few years. It's not a new idea. It's been out there for quite some time. Any change in any type of currency takes a very long time, especially U.S. currency. And believe it or not, U.S. currency is probably one of the hardest things to counterfeit in the world, even as you see that bill in front of you. So they're not always up for changing that, and it takes a very long time, a lot of negotiations and paperwork to get that done. I believe there are a few countries that use holograms on their currency. What I will do with this question is actually look into seeing what countries they are, and with Jimmy Wolford being a guest in February, maybe we can bring this back up again and find out how their company's using it and if they're involved with currency at all. Most of the security holograms produced in this country go through American Banknote Holographics in Elmsford, New York. So let's see if we can't get a little bit more information on this and bring it into another show. And then when Jimmy's on the show, we'll get the full story as far as what's happening with holograms and security.
Frank, it was brought to my attention recently that they're coming out with a new coin for the year 2000, for the new millennium. It's going to be a dollar coin, something a little different from the Susan B. Anthony. I don't know all the details, but I figure, if they're not using any type of hologram or anything on that, and you're saying about how long it takes for them to change things, that chances are you're not going to see it for a really long time.
Interesting. Well, that Susan B. Anthony coin was an absolute flop.
Well, that was because it was so close to a quarter. This one's supposed to be different. They're going to use different edging on it, like, the ridges or whatever.
Yeah.
Something about it's going to be, like, majorly different, and then I guess they're going to slowly phase out the bill.
So the size is going to make a difference as far as whether it's a success or not? The Susan B. Anthony coin was a flop because of the size.
Well, yeah, because it was
people couldn't
mix it up.
People couldn't distinguish it from a quarter.
And you went to pay for something that was $1.25, you could easily hand them $2 coins.
Oh, I see.
Because they were so close in size.
Yeah, it makes me laugh that they couldn't figure that out before they put the coin out there.
Yeah, well.
But geez, maybe someone will mistake this for a quarter, and we'll have a lot of trouble with this. That's interesting. I don't think we'll ever see a hologram on a coin, but you never know. I mean, if we can put interference patterns on candy, we may be able to put an interference pattern on a coin.
But if they're going to go back to the coins.
Yeah.
And you're talking about putting holograms like on the bill type money.
Yeah, paper money.
If they're going to go back to all coins, there'd be no point maybe.
$100 coins too?
Cool. Put a couple of those in your pocket.
That's a jingle, huh?
Good jingle.
All right, let's move on to an email question.
I have a pulsed YAG laser. And
YAG.
What did I say?
YAG.
What did I say?
YAG.
YAG.
Yeah, that's right. Go ahead.
Is this one or not?
Go ahead.
I have a pulsed YAG laser, and I'm interested in...
All right, I'm sorry.
Will you
go ahead.
stop? Are we doing this for real now?
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't trust you. I have... You might as well stop it. I got to pull myself back together now.
No, go ahead. We have a pulsed YAG laser.
Ready?
Yeah.
I have a pulsed YAG laser, and I'm interested in making some stop-action holograms for a final project in a holography class. I am looking for advice and suggestions for subjects. I am very new to holography and would appreciate any information.
Well, this is a good question. It's perfect timing because YAG season just opened last week. Well, you're very lucky that... What's that?
What do the YAG look like? They like an elk or...
they're sort of like an elk, yeah.
Big?
Big, very
Antlers?
big. Just one.
In the middle?
No, left. It's on the left-hand side. You're very lucky to have a pulsed YAG laser, especially
YAG?
After you said that you've just been involved with holography for a very short time. My suggestion to you would be there's a series of Kodak books that are out, actually sort of like a little series of books, maybe 10 volumes or something like that, that shows all the different research that Kodak Labs have done over the years. And one of those books deals with high speed, very high speed, and ultra high speed photography. Probably one of the more famous pieces is the bullet that is shot through the apple, and you can see that bullet in flight as it breaks through the apple. Great stop-action photography. So you might want to check those books out and get a few ideas from there. A lot of this stuff has already been done, and like I said, it's been done through photography. As far as coming up with a new idea, I can't come up with anything on the spot, but maybe I can at least point you in the right direction to see what some other people have done in this high-speed stop-action field, and get the old gray matter churning and come up with a little bit of an idea on your own, something new that would be interesting visually, especially with holography. I know light and flight has been done where a very short pulse of laser light was recorded three-dimensionally. That was a very interesting hologram to see that little packet of photons just hanging right in air. So check out those Kodak books. If I can, I'll send you an email. I'll find out what the names are because I know there's I think a set of them over at the library here. So next time someone runs over, I'll say, check these books out and find out what the name is. I'll send you an email and you can check it out. Okay, let's move over to one of the telephone calls.
Hi, Frank. I was wondering what's the difference between incoherent and coherent light. Thanks for answering this. See you later.
Okay, the difference between coherent and incoherent light. This is the example that I like to use, especially for younger people like the caller that made this left this question on the answering machine. Picture yourself in a helicopter, and you're flying around town. And the first stop that we're going to make is over at the fairgrounds. And we have a concert going on at the fairgrounds, and we're looking down at the crowd at that concert. You'll notice that they're scattered around the fairgrounds. They're absolutely in random order. You'll also notice that they've got different colored jackets on. There's no structure to that crowd whatsoever. Now we're going to take the helicopter and we're going to fly through downtown, and we're going over top of Main Street. And walking down Main Street is a high school band. They're all in step with one another. They're walking uniformly down Main Street. They've all got the same colored jackets on in the band, and that would be a good visual representation as far as what coherent light is. Coherent light has all of its waves in line with one another. I like to call it a wave train. And it is one of the most important properties of laser light that allows us to make holograms in the first place, the fact that laser light is coherent. It's a coherent source of light. Light from your light bulb is an incoherent source and would be represented by the crowd that's standing around the concert stage. Okay, let's jump over to an email question.
When you make a hologram from drawn images, should the drawings be rendered in black and white or color? If the drawings were rendered in black and white, is it possible for the final hologram to be in color?
It is possible to make three-dimensional images and holograms from hand-drawn images, just as it's possible to use a frame grabber and grab frames off of a computer program and then synthesize those images into a hologram as well. What you're going to have to do is draw each of those images from a different perspective, just as if you're rotating an object on a computer. You're going to have to make your drawings the same way, and then each of those images will be transferred over to the master using the slit method of doing the holographic master, or the H1. Yes, there's no sense in doing the drawing in color, black and white. That's about it. As far as getting color in the final image, there's probably a number of different ways to do that. First way would be the triethanolamine technique, where you would draw a series of black and white images. Each of those images would represent the colors red, green, and blue. And then when you do the transfer, each one of those masters, you have to make a separate master for each one of those colors, and then transfer those masters over, all three of them, to one copy plate, which would be treated with triethanolamine. Now, triethanolamine's a solution that swells the emulsion, and you can make multiple color holograms using a single wavelength like a helium neon laser and have that hologram come out different colors. We can cover that, a triethanolamine technique, in a later show. So if it's going to be a heck of a project, but yes, you could do it from hand-drawn images. If you want to have a final color, you're going to have to do 3 separate drawings and have each of those drawings represent a separate color of red, green, and blue. Let's grab another email question.
Okay, this one's a 2-part question. The first part is, where can I find a non-AH holographic film for helium neon lasers? We are making poor attempts producing holograms. Our school cannot afford the glass plate film, but need a less expensive film.
And what's the second part?
The second part is, we are having trouble developing the film. We are attempting reflection holograms. Do we need a bleach? All we get is black film.
Okay. Well, first off the bat, what I'm seeing from this, where can I find non-AH holographic film? And then in the second part of the question, we are attempting reflection holograms. Well, you cannot do reflection holograms with an AH-backed film, non-halation-backed film. You can do laser transmission holograms. Transmission holograms where both your object beam and your reference beam is approaching that film on the same side of the film. But with your reflection setup, your object beam and your reference beam are approaching that holographic film from opposite sides. And if you've got an AH-backed film that you're using, you're not going to get a reflection hologram in the first place, number one. Number two, you do need to use a bleach for reflection holograms. They're just not that efficient that you can just make a reflection hologram, not bleach it, and then see it. Although I believe with some of the Russian emulsions it's possible to do that. I'm not quite sure if a reflection bleach is used with the Russian emulsions or not, but I'm assuming you're using AGFA or maybe even Kodak holographic film, but you're not going to do reflection holograms. I'm going to send you an email telling you where you can pick up some film, and you can order that. Glass plates are very expensive, especially for a school setup, because, number one, there's so many things that are happening in the school that you get a lot of holograms that don't turn out in the first place. But my suggestion to you is get some of the non-AH film and also use a bleach. I'll send some processing formulas to you as well. I just want to remind you that our toll-free number is 1-800-458-3525. We'd love to get your call on the air. We're getting a lot of emails, but we're not getting as many calls as we are emails. Now, this call doesn't cost you anything. We pay for this call, and it doesn't show up on your phone bill. So if you got a question, pick up the phone and call in, and we'd like to use your voice on the air. Of course, you can also send email, which I guess, come to think of it, it's probably the logical choice if you're on the net to begin with, just to click that link and send the email, and that's probably why we get more email than telephone calls. That email address is holotalk@holoworld.com. We've been doing pretty good with the show, Deb. We've had, our average is 288 listeners per day for the show.
It's pretty impressive.
That's pretty good. Of course, with the longer shows that are running a half hour, even at 14.4, that's a 2 megabyte file that's going up. So we're transferring 600 megabytes of data per day, and you times that by 7 days a week, and you're looking at over 4 gigs of information that we're transferring down. So that's a lot of information that's being transferred as well. Because we have so many emails, let's move on and do a third email in a row here.
Okay, Frank, this one's a long one.
I'll take a nap.
Well, not that long.
Okay.
Okay. I absolutely love your new Real Audio HoloChat. This is by far the best thing that's ever happened to your website. Now, instead of checking in on your site once every couple of months, I'll be there every week. But I have a couple of questions regarding HoloChat.
Oh, boy.
First, I noticed that even after I've completely listened to the entire show, the only way I can hear it again is to reconnect to your site on the Internet. Your shows are very informative, and I would love to keep a copy of the shows on my computer to refer to at my own leisure, especially since you change the show every week and the previous one becomes no longer available. Second, I was wondering if you would in the future provide a transcription of the show so I can also print out the show and highlight the sections which are of particular interest to me.
Okay, would you mind repeating the question?
Yes, I would mind.
Okay. It was very nice to get this email. It made me feel good, the fact that we are now hearing that there's people out there that enjoy the show. But this one's special because it's coming from someone America Online, and I'm very happy to hear that we've got some America Online people that are logging on to hear the show. The reason behind that is the fact that many times people with America Online have a hard time getting supplemental programs to work with their browsers, such as Real Audio and things of that nature. And not to any fault of America Online, but it's just, they don't have experience configuring the browser to actually recognize the RA and RM files and things of that nature, which you have to configure in order for Real Audio to work. So I'm glad to hear we've got some America Online people listening. So welcome. As far as recording the show, yeah, there's something I can do about that. I'm not quite sure what Real Audio version you have or what Real Audio version this begins with, but there's a little box that I can check that's called Selective Record when I do the show, and that will allow anyone who's listening to the show to record it while they're listening, and it'll be stored on your own hard drive. So beginning with this show, I'll click Selective Record, and anyone who would like to have the show for record on their hard drive, just go into your Real Audio player. I think up the top of your screen somewhere you can pull down a window and it'll say Selective Record, and choose that, and it will record it while you're listening to it. Then when you play it back, you don't have to be online or anything anymore. You just click on it. The Real Audio player opens up and plays it locally from the hard drive. Transcription. I don't know what this isn't the Geraldo show or anything. It's not like we have a staff of people that's working here that can type things out, and we just do it on the fly. There's nothing we read from outside of the emails that we print out. Let's look into it. I don't think we're going to be doing any transcripts right now where you can receive anything that's in printed form, but it's always an option, and it's something I wouldn't have thought about if you didn't send the email in, so thanks for the idea. And let's see if there isn't something that we can do about it, and maybe offer some transcripts for people that can have it printed out and take notes on it and highlight it and things of that nature. It's nice to hear that they appreciate the show that much. Don't you think?
I do think.
I do. Okay. You do. I do too. Okay. Okay, moving on. We do have a news item. This is funny because I have an America Online account as well. To my internet account. I'm looking for the story here. I can't find the story.
Right here. I think I have your copy too.
Yeah, both copies.
I think so. No, wait. Yeah.
Now, on America Online, there's a little service that's called My AOL, which is funny. I'm sure it's My AOL as much as Steve Case's house is my house. But it allows you to choose different news subjects, and then from the AP Wire service, it downloads those articles to your mailbox, which is a nice service, and I use it for a number of other things that I'm interested in, and I get news every day when I log on about the things that I'm interested in. Of course, for this show, I make sure that I have keywords like holography, hologram, lasers, optics, and things of that nature, and I even make sure that I include them both with a cap H and lowercase h, just so that in case anything comes up, that news article is filtered down to me. And I never get anything. Nothing ever comes through with lasers and holograms, but we got one through AP Wire service, so this has to do with NASA experiments, so maybe we should have, every once in a while, read a news article on here as well. Are you up for this?
I think so.
All right, well, let's take a look at our laser and hologram news.
The title of the article is Shuttle-Based Laser to Test Technology for Measuring Atmospheric Winds.
Okay.
NASA will fly an infrared laser in the cargo bay of the space shuttle to see if a space-based sensor can accurately measure global winds within Earth's atmosphere from just above the surface to a height of about 10 miles. Successful measurements in this key region of the atmosphere could lead to improved weather forecasting and better understanding of climate-related events such as El Nino.
El Nino.
El Nino.
El Nino and the three amigos.
Go into space.
Go into space.
Due to launch in 2001 at an estimated cost of $15 million, Sparkle will be managed by NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama, as the second Earth-orbiting mission in the agency's new Millennium program. If successful, a more robust system based on Sparkle could be a candidate for launch aboard a free-flying satellite within the following few years. The experiment will be carried to orbit and back in two space shuttle hitchhiker canisters that weigh approximately 200 pounds or 320 kilograms each. Researchers hope to obtain approximately 50 hours of wind data. Other partners in the development of Sparkle include NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland, Langley Research Center in Hampton, Virginia, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California, the University of Alabama at Huntsville, and several private companies. The primary goal of the New Millennium program is to identify, develop, validate, in-flight key instrument and spacecraft technologies that can lower the cost and increase the performance of science missions in the 21st century. The overall program is managed by the Jet Propulsion Laboratory for NASA's Office of Space Science and Office of Mission to Planet Earth, Washington, D.C. NASA's Mission to Planet Earth Enterprise is a long-term research program designed to study the Earth's land, oceans, air, ice, and life as a total system.
So good.
Excuse me. I didn't realize that we were on.
So there's no mention as to what company created the laser, though, right?
No.
Did you have some Alka-Seltzer before you come down tonight?
It's that chicken.
It's that chicken. Okay. Let's go on to the next email question.
Okay. Can you tell me when the new holofilm will be ready? That's a brief one.
It sure is. New holofilm. I don't know what new holofilm the person's talking about, though. I wonder if they're mentioning they're thinking about the Russian emulsions. They're available now through a number of different sources. Intergraph, Lake Forest, Illinois, and also 3 Deep Company. Alex Shemet's going to be on our show coming up, so you may want to log on that week. Let me just see what week he's on. January 4th. So come back on January 4th, and we'll get the full story on the new holofilm. But that film's been available. If that's the film you're referring to, that's been available for some time. And it's working out pretty good for most people, I think. A little bit different as far as the development technique. Of course, exposure times are longer, but I think there's ways to get around that. Let's go on to how about a telephone question? Let's go to a telephone question.
Hello. I wanted to ask you, how are lasers made? Okay? Bye.
Okay, how are lasers made? As far as the manufacturing techniques, I'm sure there's different techniques for each individual type of laser, whether it's a gas laser like a helium neon laser or an argon laser. And then you've got your solid-state lasers, or what we call solid-state lasers, meaning that the actual lasing is done through a solid medium, such as a ruby rod with your ruby lasers. And there's also the laser diodes, which at times are also called solid-state lasers because there's no gas or any type of liquid involved with the lasing going on there. For all practical purposes, let's just choose a helium neon laser. They're made in a clean room environment, obviously, but let me try and maybe the whole point of your question was how are they put together. A laser tube looks like it's actually a long tube filled with the mixture of helium and neon gas. It's made of glass, and at the end of the glass tube, we place 2 mirrors. Now, those 2 mirrors actually reflect that light back and forth. One of the mirrors is pretty close to 100% reflective, which takes the light and reflects it back up through the tube again. And the end of the tube where the laser light comes out is a fraction of 100% reflective, and it allows a certain percentage of the light to come through. It's a very simple design. I have a diagram of a helium neon laser tube at the site. It's on the kids page. I think it's called HoloKids. So you should log on to that page and just scroll down, and you'll see a very simple diagram as to how a helium neon laser is made.
All right, Frank. This email wasn't really a question. All the person has written here is defining 2D objects in computer-generated holograms.
Okay. I'll take a crack at what the question is. I imagine the person's interested in finding out how you can take two-dimensional information and then make a three-dimensional hologram from that information. There's several different ways that you can do that. Let's look at the computer way. If you design an object in a 3D rendering program, and you can give that object so many degrees of rotation, you can rotate it 90 degrees horizontally, 180 degrees, or even have a complete rotation of 360 degrees. To get that hologram finished, there's a couple different ways that you can get that information to the hologram itself. Number one, you can print that information out to a laser image setter, a high-resolution laser image setter, and have each one of those degree of rotations come out on film, and then make your master from each one, actually a slit master from each one of those degree of rotation. Another way of getting through this, which is a little bit more high-tech, is to use a transmissive LCD screen. And this is pretty much real-time in the fact that you're sending that image over to the LCD screen, each image at a time, while that computer is still on. And then you rotate that image and do your individual slits from each of those degrees of rotation once again. When you play back this image on the master hologram, the laser transmission H1 hologram, you'll find out that not only will the image appear three-dimensional after all those slits have been recorded, but as you move horizontally past the hologram, or hold the hologram in your hand and move the hologram back and forth horizontally, you'll notice that you'll get your rotation as well. So those are two of the more common ways of taking two-dimensional information and making a three-dimensional hologram from it. This is a question similar to the one that we had earlier about the person drawing it. You can also draw this information if you happen to be an artist, and you can, of course, you have to have a very good sense of what that object would look like rotating in order to draw all those different degrees of rotation. But to do it with a computer, that's basically the way that you would do it. Go into a 3D rendering program, make your object, start out with something simple like a cube, rotate that cube maybe 180 degrees, and then take each one of those degrees of rotation and transfer individually to individual slits on the master hologram, and you should come out with a nice three-dimensional object and have some visual rotation as well. Okay, let's go to the phone lines and take another phone call.
Hi, Frank. I was just wondering that if you broke a hologram into a few pieces and you placed it back together, what would happen to the image on the hologram? Thank you. Bye.
I have a lot of people come up to me and ask me this question about breaking the hologram up into 1,000 pieces, and each one of the pieces contain the entire image. That's true to a point, and it works best with laser transmission holograms where the object's located some distance away from the holographic plate. If you do the same thing with a reflection hologram, whether it's a reflection hologram shot right from the object, or a reflection hologram that's done as an H2 or a copy from a master where you have an image plane hologram, you're not going to get the same effect because that image itself is too close to the plane of the holographic plate itself to see any of this effect. In a nutshell, if you take a laser transmission hologram where you've got that object maybe about 6 or 8 inches away from the holographic plate when it's shot, and you break that hologram up into a number of different pieces, you are going to be able to look through each one of those pieces and see the entire object three-dimensionally. However, there's a limit to this. Now, say for instance we've got a laser transmission hologram and we're going to slice that hologram into 4 individual pieces. Now, if we grab the upper left-hand corner of that piece, and that's the piece that we're going to use. When we re-illuminate that with laser light, we can look through that holographic piece and see the actual full object there. But, and here's the but, you see it from the perspective of whatever piece you have. Now, if we've taken the upper left-hand corner of the hologram and we're looking through that piece, we'll see the whole object, but we're going to see it from the perspective of the upper left-hand corner, and so on and so forth with each individual piece. Now, if we put that hologram back together again, it will merge into the complete image once again, and you can move your head around and see things from different perspectives. So outside of the fact that you'd probably have a few lines in the hologram from where you put that glass plate and where the film back together again, it will just go back into the full three-dimensional scene once again. Okay, let's go to an email.
Okay. I'm a sophomore in high school, and we're studying holograms. I need to know what interference has to do with making a hologram and what an interference pattern is.
Okay, an interference pattern is created in the emulsion of that hologram, a light-sensitive emulsion, silver particles, just like a photographic emulsion that you have, except that the silver particles are much smaller and the holographic film has much higher resolution than a typical photographic film. That interference pattern formed within that emulsion because you're taking laser light, you're taking two coherent sources of laser light for a split beam setup, and having them interfere with one another. Now, what this means is that as that wavefront of laser light is moving toward that film, when that meets at the actual emulsion and those two wavefronts meet, what happens is you have what's called constructive and destructive interference. When two of those photons traveling towards that film meet at the plate and they meet at the height of the amplitude of the wave, you have what's called constructive interference, and those two values are added together, and that silver grain that's located at that spot is exposed. Conversely, when you have the two photons traveling towards the film meet at the plate, and you've got one of the photons that at the part of its phase at the crest of the wave, and the other photon, which is coming from the other, probably from the object, is at its trough, which is the lowest part of the energy cycle of the wave, you have a cancellation at that spot, and there's no energy there for it to expose the silver grain. And this happens billions and billions of times throughout the emulsion. And basically what this interference pattern is a fingerprint of the dimensional qualities. It's the actual recording of the optical wavefront, the original optical wavefront that came off of the object in the first place. So, after you develop that holographic plate or film, these individual silver grains that were exposed are developed. The ones that were not exposed are not developed, and that's what plays back. When you put that hologram back into the white light, the hologram takes that incoming white light and remodulates it back into that original wavefront, which is now stored in that emulsion as an interference pattern. That information goes to your eye sends it to the brain, and it's a mathematical process within the brain that actually puts that information back together again as the three-dimensional object that you're seeing. Okay, hope that answers that. Was that pretty clear?
That was pretty clear.
Okay.
I followed it.
Okay, let's move on to our next email question.
I recently read a Wired Mag article on holographic storage. What can you tell me about this, and when do you think this technique will be available?
Okay, holographic data storage is a very hot topic right now, and I'm going to try and see if we can't get a guest on that's going to be talking to us about holographic data storage. Basically, the theory is you can take the entire contents of the Library of Congress and store it in the area the size of a sugar cube. You have two lasers which meet and interfere with each other inside a photorefractive crystal, although I understand they're working on some systems also that use photopolymer as the storage device. These are big systems. When you talk about holographic storage, you would think that it would be something like a hard drive, but these The system that I had a chance to see was actually set up on a 4 by 8 foot Newport research isolation table, so it's huge. This thing probably weighs a good 1.5 tons to 2 tons. It's not something you could carry around like a zip drive, although someday we may see it there. Let's leave that at that and see if we can't get some information, because I think holographic data storage would make a very interesting show where we could dedicate the entire show to holographic storage techniques. So let's look at doing something like that in the future. I think that would be a great show. Are we pretty much through these email questions? Hold on a second.
I think I see maybe 2 that we missed.
Okay. Let's go to another phone. What we're trying to do is get all the questions in this week. Last week we couldn't get some of the questions in because of the interview. Let's go to another phone question.
Hi, my name's Tiffany. I would like to know what a hologram is.
Okay, what better question could you send to a laser and holography talk show than what is a hologram? As simple as that question is, we have to keep in mind that there's a lot of people that are coming to this site that have absolutely no idea what a hologram is.
Right.
Exactly. Most people on the street don't know what a hologram is.
No, I know. I find the same thing when I go to work, and I start talking about what you do, and it's like I take for granted everybody knows because I hear it so much.
Yeah.
But they're like, well, what is that?
Yeah. And unless you see one, you really can't explain it to somebody.
Yeah, it's really difficult to explain.
Yeah. Well, in any case, a hologram is a three-dimensional image which is created using lasers. Now, these images are very lifelike. As you move past the hologram, say, for instance, we did a hologram of a ball which was behind a cube. Now, you can move past the hologram, and on the left-hand side of the hologram and the far right-hand side of the hologram, you'd be able to see that that ball was hidden behind the cube because you can interact with the hologram in that fashion. It's not like a 3D movie where you go to a movie theater and you put the 3D glasses on, or you rent one of the videos that come with the glasses and you see 3D. They're 3D, there's no question about that, but there's what I call static 3D. It wouldn't matter if you were sitting on the left-hand side of the theater or the right-hand side of the theater. Everyone in that theater sees the same 3D effect no matter where it is that they're sitting. Now, if you were sitting there and it was possible to have a holographic movie on that screen, what someone on the left-hand side of the theater would see would be different than someone on the right-hand side of the theater.
It would kind of be like going and seeing a play live.
Yes,
if you
that's
were
a very
sitting
good...
on the left-hand side, you'd see all the actors from a certain angle, but if you were sitting on the opposite side, you'd see them from the opposite angle.
Couldn't say it better myself. That's the effect of a hologram. And holograms are very realistic. My favorite holograms, personally, are laser transmission holograms. I just find them so fascinating. And unless you've had a chance to see laser transmission holograms, you really don't get the full impact of a hologram itself. Even the best reflection and white light transmission holograms, to me, they're very good. I mean, make no doubt about that. But laser transmission holograms are just wonderful to me. I love them. So in any case, a hologram is a three-dimensional object. You have more of a sense that what you're seeing is actually in front of your eyes. I have a hologram that I got from Dr. Zhang out at Lake Forest College, which shows him standing in the middle of what has to be a 20-foot laboratory. It's on a 4 by 5 inch glass plate. Now, I can illuminate this hologram with laser light, and that entire room reforms on the other side of that hologram. You can look up and see the ceiling. You can look down and see the floor. You can look left and see all the equipment down at the left-hand side of the laboratory. You can look right and see all the equipment down at the right-hand side of the laboratory, and it's absolutely amazing. So I would suggest you've got to get out there and see some holograms. If you're listening to this and you send me another email, tell me what town you're in. I won't use that on the air, but tell me what town you're in, and I'll tell you the closest place that you can go to see some holograms in your area. Okay, I think we have one more email question, right?
Last one, right?
Okay, we'll get to that. I just want to remind you, you can call us 1-800-458-3529. 3525. That number again, 1-800-458-3525. The call does not cost you anything. It doesn't show up on your bill, and we'd love to have your voice on the air. Of course, you can also send email, and that seems to be the way that people are preferring to get their messages through, and that's at holotalk@holoworld.com. Last announcement here. Let me just get to the page. We're going to be broadcasting live this Friday night, which is the 21st of November. We're going to go online at 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. You won't hear any audio with it. We're going to get a webcam in the studio here and broadcast the images up. We'll have a link on the page right where you choose to listen to HoloTalk. You'll see a link that will say see the live broadcast. Click on that. It'll take you to the page. And I think what we do with this webcam is we send an image up every 20 seconds, and it will automatically update on your browser. And you can just stop in for a few minutes and see, take a look inside the studio and see what it is that we go through to get this up here. Guest next week, Paul Graham from Light Vision, and Paul's company works with holographic candy. They put holographic images on candy. That's going to be.
Will we be getting any samples of that?
I think we should ask Paul to send us a couple samples.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I'd like to see them and taste them.
A musical guest will be Emily's Toy Box. They're a lot of fun. You've got to join us for that. Okay, let's move on to the last email question.
Okay. I wonder if you can help me to find other good sources on the Internet. I want to do a good job with my project. I also want to try making my own holograms. I would like to hear from you.
Okay, there's a lot of great sites for holography on the Internet. While you're here, I guess you're logging back on to listen to the answer, although I may have sent an email through on this, but check out the link page at the Internet Webmuseum of Holography. Just scroll down from where you see HoloTalk, and you'll see the directory of the entire site. Choose the link page, and it's a fairly comprehensive listing of all the different resources and sites on the Internet that are up there now for holography. And do a little surfing. Take a night, sit back, grab a soda or something, and visit all the sites. There are a number of excellent amateur holography sites that you can go on. Some of the sites, in fact, I think Paul's site that's going to be on next week with Light Vision, they have an entire manual for holograms on there, creating holograms, which I was on the other night, and it's excellent. And we'll also have a link to his site when he's a guest next week, where you can, after the show, you can just click on the link and go visit Light Vision's site. Okay, so, and good luck with your project and also making holograms. If you decide you want to make them, please let us know. We'd like to get some amateur holographers on the show, too, so we'll be looking to contact a few amateur holographers and see what's up with amateur holography, which I find is one of the most interesting aspects of holography, is what people are doing in their own homes and their own schools and things of that nature. That's where things are really exciting, and it's down to earth, and it's what we're doing. It's everyone that's out there that's working with holography. So we'll try and get some amateurs on the show as well. So, Deb, that about wraps it up for another week.
Okay.
You're going to be back next week when Paul Graham's the guest?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Friday night.
Friday night, yeah. We'll be broadcasting Friday night the images, and then you can log on Sunday night and enjoy the show. So this is Frankie Freitas for myself and Debbie Lee. We want to thank you for logging on and listening to this issue of HoloTalk, and looking forward to having you come back and visit with us once again next week. Take care.
Take care. Good night.